Okay, the next submitter 45, Jeff Ashby. Tēnā koe.
Morena, thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you this morning. Firstly, I think this document is a brilliant start. It is a really good holistic start. The growth concept is very, very good. It's a bit short on detail at the moment, but we'll all expect that. The devil will be in the detail later on. But it's a pretty good start to what is going to be a serious issue over the next few years. One thing I will ask you to be very careful of is the population growth projections. I've been sort of studying the census data for the last 4 sets, and it is very difficult to quantify the effects of transmission gully coming into the system yet. We do not know. It cannot be modelled really well at the moment, and it'll be interesting to see what that effect that has. I think most of the projections at the moment, and my projections agree pretty close to yours, is that we're going to undershoot it. Your population growth is going to be greater than what we're predicting at the moment. The studies that we've completed already in the Peka Tihoro area have indicated some extremely high growth, but you've got to remember that that's on a pretty small population base. Although the growth is comparable with places like Tauranga, it's not up to the heady heights of Queenstown Lakes and stuff like that, but it's comparable with Tauranga. It is on that small population base, so we do have to recognise that. Transmission Gully is a vein to the south of this area. We can't expand to the south, we can't expand to the east or west. All expansion is going to be to the north or as an infill, as we can see quite well in this document. With the infill, I think we're all going to have to be very, very wary. You as councillors, the government as well, in their resource management submissions and stuff like that. 3 or 6 stories in a already existing residential area will, I think, you're going to get a hell of a lot of pushback from current neighbours. Infill housing to this sort of degree, you should really look at designated new areas, industrial greenfield. The transport corridor with development along it is brilliant, but it all hinges on significant regional agency support. Kiwi Rail, double tracking, electrification, to Otaki first, then to Levin, underpins this sort of strategy. 2 new railway stations, Hadfield and Tihoro, there's already land there. And also Wakakotahi, the completion of the Peka interchange. We really do have to push for some of these regional aspects now to enable the growth strategy to develop into the future. And that's about all I've really got to say. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Councillor Compton.
Thank you for your submission today, Jeff. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I've sort of talked about similar thoughts to you about those projections being conservative compared to what growth's likely to be. Because I think we've added 30,000 in the last 30 years, and we're talking about only 2,000 more than that over the next 30. So what sort of figure do you think might be more appropriate over the next 30 years in terms of population growth?
Well, the reality is, and this is the reality, based on 2001 through to 2018, New Zealand's population projection went up 25.8%, 26%. Kāpiti was just a titch above it, 26.5%. So about the New Zealand average. If you look at the Peka Tihoro area, we were actually up at 46%. And this is one of these high growth areas that compares very well with places like Tauranga at 50% over that same period. So we have that background level at 25, 26, Kāpiti a little bit higher. 45% in the Peka Tihoro area, where you guys are putting some growth concepts in there, which is great, excellent. 45.6% there, and Tauronga's at 50. 128% Queenstown Lakes, but I'm not going to get into those heady heights. But yeah, look, in terms of actual numbers, I'm not going to make a prediction now, because
fair enough.
I do think it has been undershot by everybody. The reality is that we do not know. Nobody knows the effect of transmission gully yet, the exact effect of that into the system. And it can only, one suspect, it can only be an upward push that's going to push the numbers even higher.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Councillor Holiday.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Jeff. Look, you talked to new satellite intensification zones, and we through the plan there, or through the strategy, we've identified towns, hubs, that sort of thing. Are you talking about some? Perhaps you could enlighten a bit more on what you're talking about in regards to that.
In regards to the
new satellite intensification zones.
Yes, well, that's the Peka area on the Huia Street area, which is almost getting some connectivity in there now. There's particularly high growth in that area. The other one is the Tihoro area that you showed on the map. I fully support those. They're great places for that sort of intensification. You've got to be very careful, A, you don't move too close to the coast, and you've kept away from that, and B, you're not moving into productive land, which is where we should all be very, very careful. The Peka, the East Peka and Huia Street area is non-productive land. It's not good for horticulture, it's not very productive. The Tihoro area, just have to be careful there, but in terms of some of those areas in there, you're not going to impinge too much on the productive land. So, yeah, go for it in those areas. But in terms of that infill housing, I think you're going to have to be careful and push towards industrial areas, perhaps. It's side down Tirodo Drive there somewhere. Those would be good areas. Pushing that sort of 3- and 6-story development into existing neighbourhoods is fraught with issues on a personal basis, on people's shadows, site plans being impinged.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Coates.
Morning, Jeff. Look, we've had varying views around rural development, and in your submission you talk about keeping away from productive horticultural land. As you know, we've got some large rural blocks, and there's been calls from some within that community to allow further subdivision of those blocks. It was previously submitted today talking about, say, a 10-acre block as an example, being allowed to be subdivided down to provide not high density, but further rural development. So there are some competing tensions out there. I'm interested in your views around how far we should be allowing rural development in those rural and in some instances productive areas.
I think we should be listening a lot to the information that's coming from the government at the moment. The jurisdiction is saying, don't go into these areas. I know they've got a hell of a problem in South Auckland, because that's exactly what's going on. They're building into those areas and taking away high horticultural land. That's the stuff you want to be clear of. The stuff in Tihoro, the Tihoro gravels, they're good farmland and stuff like that, but a lot of it isn't conducive to horticulture. You tend to be north of Otaki for that. So,
and that is some of the feedback we've had come through as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And getting out towards the coast a bit in the dairying country, there's horticultural areas in there.
Okay. Second question, I note you referred to better connectivity or interchanges around not only the Peka area but the Tihoro area.
Yep.
Again, living in that area, what's your views around any potential development around that sort of Tihoro settlement? So, arguably around the transport node, there's no train station there, but it's around that sort of, future bus stop area? Do you think there should be further development around that sort of settlement area that sits around the main trunk line?
Definitely. That whole corridor concept is a brilliant one. And you've got to remember that there was a train station at Hadfield Road. It lasted for about 6 years. It was a flag corps station. There's land there. There's land at Gear Road, or at School Road, sorry, there for a train station. It's already there, so the jurisdiction is there. What I would like to impress upon you guys is that you really have to start now, because you're going to have to liaise and work with the regional councils on these sorts of areas. Now, the old chestnut, you've probably heard me before about the Peka Peka interchange, that was there was always going to be, when the original Western Link was put forward, the study by Maunsell back in the 1990s, had 2 interchanges between Timoana and Otaki, one at Peka Peka and one at Gear Road. The subsequent Opus study dropped the one at Gear Road, but reckoned it should be future-proofed for the Tihoro area, and they carried on with the Peka Peka one, and then, unfortunately, through sets of circumstances, the previous council here, through their jurisdictions and stuff like that, virtually didn't want the full interchange at Peka Peka, and it was never completed per se because of that, because of their submission in 2011 to the Environment Court. But let's put that all aside.
Yeah, I was sort of more specifically looking at that sort of growth and development and intensification around that sort of true rural, currently a rural village, but I think you've answered that quite well. And I agree with you in terms of, and those around the table will tell you, I've been hammering on about the need for Greater Wellington and so forth to be involved in these discussions, being those key parties that you have referred to in terms of providing the transport. So thanks very much.
Councillor Pravano.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jeff, for coming along and speaking today. So I just want to follow up on what one of the questions that Councillor Coots asked, and that was to do with I suppose, building houses on rural, high quality horticultural land. I'm wondering whether you actually also think it's appropriate to be doing that in an urban area, and I suppose particularly in Otaki, where that land is becoming really quite cut up. And so just what your views are on that, or whether that's just something that we just have to accept.
Well, I think it's the only thing is as you move out of the foothills and onto the flat, you're going to make it easier for an intensification, if you like, and utilising some of the higher storey buildings and things like that. You are going to run into some geotechnical issues, liquefaction and stuff like that, and also encroaching on wetlands and bits and pieces. Really, it's not until you get to north of Otaki that you really start impinging on that really high quality land. South of the Otaki River isn't so bad, but really, if that intensification is coming, probably in tight, compact little spots that would be suitable. But yeah, it's a conundrum. It's a conundrum too. But south of the Otaki River, really, there's lots of areas in there that would be suitable for high intensity satellite areas.
Okay.
Right. Jeff, no other questions. Thank you for taking the time talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Next, Donna Platt, you here? Donna?
Yes.
117.
Hi, I'm very nervous now. I've rehearsed a lot of what I.
Don't worry. You're in good company. Just relax.
No, well, I'm here today because my father, Reg Platt, worked tirelessly for the last 35 years of his life in the community. He was, did a couple of presidents since with the Lions. I'm sure it was his bookbinding mastercraft that started the book fair for the Lions. He worked tirelessly on the sheds and the cakes and the everything else, and greenkeeper at Raumati. And I was brought up in a house where honesty and integrity ruled. It's thanks to him that he went to, realised I wasn't doing well at school, and at 14 he found me a hairdressing apprenticeship, which was one of the first being offered in the country. He got me into Kakolis and Stains. I was there for 12 years. And so through my time with quality and we were about quality, not quantity. And, you know, I've mixed in so many different walks of life, and I've seen an awful lot of things. And I'm here today really to talk about honesty and integrity, because just one classic example, my daughter put in an application to a small part of a council department for a minor change on her garage. They messed her around so much that she lost her hard-earned $15,000 because they didn't get her papers done in time, and she had to go out and find, her circumstances changed and she couldn't afford to go through with it. The other thing is, to supplement my £2 7 and 6 salary from 48-hour weeks at Kirk's, I had to go and work nights. So I ended up doing bar work, and this is what I'm leading up to. The man who was my partner was the doorman, and I was hat check girl in the 60s, right? I made toasted sandwiches and got everyone drinks and kept everyone happy. And it was all live music, entertainment. So I worked through the night and then still managed to get up in time for work. But my partner went on to open some of the best music bars and venues in Wellington and in Auckland. And so every time he had an opening night, the bureaucrats or the police chief, the fire chief, the councilman, he would always have 5 brown envelopes in his pocket with $1,000 in each, and that was the payoff for his permits. So I've seen the other side of the track, and he has gone on. He's still working in Wellington as a developer. He was actually partly built the apartment block I live in at the McLean Street Apartments. He let my mother live there for 20 years. Everyone loved Polly. So I'm just wanting to keep everybody honest and to back up Sharon Hunter's figures, because, I mean, she was the computer financial whiz kid at the Beehive until they took on a $350,000 idiot, male, and she lost the job, and then they had to sack him 6 months later. Her figures, and my father, before he died, told me that the weather will not permit the big expense or the ugly concrete building.
So would you address your submission?
Well, basically, I'm just saying I'm here to remind people that they need to be open and honest and stop taking kickbacks. And, you know, the fire chief caused me to sell my house in Jeep Road because he was a thief, and he kept coming onto my property and stealing my unusual plants. And then he called the police chief to interrogate me.
I think Councillor Hanford, you've got a question.
Yes, I do actually have a question, Donna.
Yeah. Sorry, I know I'm emotional, but it's a one-off opportunity to tell the truth.
Completely get that, and you did well for being nervous. So thanks for being passionate and for coming to say
I am so passionate about this area. I came swimming here since I was a child. I've lived in Otaki.
Yeah, definitely I'm hearing that. And I'd love an answer to this question if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, certainly.
Based off of your written submission.
And I've got a whole lot more there. I sat there for 2 days yesterday.
Oh, good on you.
I wrote everything down that I wanted to say because I knew I'd be emotional and probably couldn't get out
you've
what
done
I needed
well.
to
So
say
the question is, you mentioned that everyone that you speak to is petrified of too much development encroaching into their peaceful lives.
Yes,
do you think there's, though, an opportunity for us to create peace through kind of creating communities in a way that enhances
you've got
people
to be
living?
happy, because I've seen it with other people that have ignored the council, and this is, my husband owns several properties.
Yeah, I'm more talking about specifically how we
we
kind of
want
format.
to keep the beauty and the nature down at McLean Street Park. I love it.
Yeah.
For all the grandmothers love it for the sake of an ice cream. They can entertain their kids and bring them home tired. And
Yeah, I
you
saw
know,
that in your submission too. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, Donna. That answers my
And
question.
I've watched, now my new balcony looks straight down onto the toilets. The biggest complaint from the community is that there's only 2 toilets ever open at the time, and I see these mothers with all these kids going like this and boys pissing up against the trees. So that was at Labour Week, or like Labour weekend. Yeah, is that all right?
Right, no other questions, so thank you very much for taking
Now-
the time to talk to us.
Okay,
And
well,
you
with
said
the
you're nervous,
principal.
but I don't think you are.
No, well, it's the principal, but is there a lady called Gay here?
There
A
might
lady
be gay
called
people,
Gay
but I'm
rang
not,
me.
the name Gay.
Do you know her? Okay, right, well, this is the...
You mean Penny Gala will give you her telephone number
She
to you?
handled me, when she rang up to invite me, she handled me so beautifully. And the thing is too, I brought here, and I see it around the area. Have you got $1,000 for him? Unfortunately no, but I've got a possibility. So if we all think clearly and sanely and common sensely, we can have a fabulous, fabulous district. But my daughter had to move to the one who lost the $15,000, had to move to the hut, and it's constantly, with all the immigrants and everything, I hate saying it, but it's full of burglars and people don't feel safe. We have to keep our safe environment.
Right, thank you very much for taking the time. Goodbye.
All written down on Shakti Rock. So I've written everything down that's important, the airport, everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's just that with my career, I've met so many different people.
Right, we've heard that. Thank you very much. Next, Andrew, is Andrew Beardson here? Andrew, that's the podium over there. Andrew from Peka Peka Farms, respondent 113. Welcome. You can take your mask off if you want.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Do I have to press something when I speak?
Yeah. Bingo.
Like that. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present about our project up at Peka Peka. I've got a slide presentation that's really a summary, if you like, of some of the key points that we put together in our submission on the growth strategy. And we're looking for some recognition of the site in the growth strategy. I'm going to briefly talk about the vision and the team, the regional context, the draft growth strategy, our master plan proposal, supply and demand, the consultation we've undertaken to date, and then where to from here. So the site is off Peka Peka Road. It sort of runs between North Waikanae and south of Peka Peka Road. It's a sort of reasonably substantial property. It was purchased, we've entered into an agreement to buy sort of middle of the year. I'm one of the partners in the project. I'm a resource management specialist. I've been working in the field for nearly 30 years. Another participant is Jeremy Moon, who's the founder of Icebreaker. And there's a local surveyor, Paul Turner, and a local builder, Ollie Hunt. We've pulled together a consultant team of who we think are really, really strong group of experts, property economics, strong ecologist, Graham Usher, Macindoe Urban doing master planning, Mary O'Keefe from Heritage and Archaeology, Mark Georgeson from Stantec on traffic, local on landscape, Landlink, that's Paul's company, Ray O'Callaghan on hydrology, Bell Gully, that's the firm that I am a partner of, doing legals, and CGW doing geotech and infrastructure. So what we're looking to deliver is a range of diverse housing types and situations. We want to work with and respect the site ecologies. The hydrology of the site is quite a complex site from a hydrological perspective. It's got some wetlands and some flooding areas, some ponding areas that we need to really appreciate and work with that, and work with the landscape. There's some significant eco-restoration opportunities that we want to explore at the site, and we're really keen to put forward a proposal that delivers some high-quality public realm outcomes. So we're talking about sort of network of open spaces and access to those for the public, as well as integrated recreational facilities. So the regional growth framework identified the area as a future urban development area, but had a further study area notation over it. The draft growth strategy doesn't currently include the site. It's identified as a priority group 3 area in Boffin-Miskell's Greenfield assessment. And Boffin-Miskell identified several constraints at a sort of desktop level. And we've gone through each of those carefully in our submission on the growth strategy and addressed each one of those. So it's important to be aware that this analysis that they undertook wasn't informed by a very detailed site-specific analysis. It was kind of a helicopter, high-level initial look. So just an introduction to what we're looking at is the proposed master plan. Obviously, all this is subject to further refinement, working with the council carefully. But we want to work with the landform and respect the landscape. There is a sand dune that runs across the sort of north to south trending across the site, and the site can be divided into 3 areas. There's a sort of coastal area that's to the west of the main dune. There's a large central area across the middle of the site. Then there's a sort of an area that's low-lying and subject to flooding and ponding variously. But there are a range of dunes on the eastern side that can usefully be developed as well. So we want to work with those sort of landform constraints, and the outcome will be what the master plan has described as an archipelago form of development with a range of clusters, if you like, surrounded by open space and natural areas. Significant wetland restoration opportunity, as I said, and in some ways, while those parts of the site that are lower lying can be seen as constraints, and they need to be left open because of the kind of low-lying nature of them, they're also opportunities because they can provide a very beautiful aspect to all of those properties that are along the edge of those areas. So there'll be a really nice open-facing aspect to this development. We're looking for a range of housing outcomes, so some low density coastal on that western dune edge. We need to keep down below the dune tops. We need to I'll keep moving quite quickly. I think I'm going to run out of time. There's an extensive network of paths proposed. There's public access to the wetland edge, connections to the expressway cycleway, which runs right along the edge of the site. And importantly, from feedback with council officers, there's existing pressure on the Peka Peka Road active mode as a result of people doing the loop, if you like. We're going to provide a connection through the site from the expressway out to Peka Peka Road that will alleviate that pressure on the higher speed part of Peka Peka Road. But as I say, a range of different houses respecting the landform, and we're going to work very carefully to identify and overcome the site constraints. Supply and demand, just briefly, there's some more detail in the report or the submission on all of these, but the short point is that it looks as though there's going to be a significant shortfall of housing, even with the government and the national the opposition's recent announcements. There's still going to be a shortfall, but the problem is that those announcements are going to delay the implementation of a greenfield strategy, I anticipate from a consultation we've undertaken. And so, you know, that shortfall can get compounded. We've got a sort of an immediate opportunity here to help you to meet the shortfall that's been identified by the property economics analysis. Consultation we've undertaken to date, we had a very successful meeting with Wayne Maxwell. Wayne facilitated with the key council managers in early November, and then we had a follow-up meeting with the infrastructure team, Sean Mellon and the infrastructure team on the 19th of November. So we're making very good progress there. We're not hearing that there's any significant infrastructure constraint. Basically, the message was there is capacity. There are broader capacity issues, if you like, that the district's facing, but that will apply across the board as Greenfields is released. But the council will have to work to address that if it's going to have any hope of meeting the growth targets that have been set by central government. So nothing to suggest there's a problem with servicing from an infrastructure perspective. We've set up working groups to identify the infrastructure requirements and opportunities for the particular site, but also to unlock the potential of release of land further north of Waikanae. We've been in touch with Te Atiawa to explore opportunities to work with them, including seeking their engagement on ecological restoration and management of that open space. And we'll be looking to them to undertake a cultural impact assessment. But it's fair to say, while we're intending to progress down that track, we have had limited real engagement with them so far, apart from exchanges of emails and expressions of interest, if you like. But we're aware we need to do that. We're working on it. So, just a short summary here. What we want to bring to the table is an eco-focused project that attracts quality growth to Kāpiti. We're committed to understanding and working with the constraints and opportunities on the site. We're aware of what those are. None of our experts so far are telling us that there's a showstopper here. A range of housing typologies proposed, from sort of lower density to some terrace housing to take advantage of those open space areas and the outlook that's available there. There's no significant infrastructure or other constraints identified to date, and our submission is that this is an ideal location for growth north of Waikanae. So next steps, we need to finalise our infrastructure requirements. Obviously there's quite a bit of work to do on stormwater management. Our hydrologist is comfortable with the proposal, but we just need to, it's the regional council sort of requirements that need to be just carefully worked through. And we would want to work up our ecological restoration plans. We need to really progress the engagement with Te Atiawa, and then we anticipate we'll move to a private plan change. We were hoping to work with council and with council's timing on its greenfields plan changes, but our understanding from the meetings we've had is that there's likely to be some delay on those as a result of the government's recent announcements, and just kind of digesting those and working out a response and the implications of those. So I think our current thinking is that we'll progress to private plan change, but we'll work carefully with the council officers and see what synergies we can achieve there. So what I'm here for today is to first introduce the proposal to you, and also to request that the property be identified in the growth strategy as either a high or medium priority greenfield growth area.
You mentioned a couple of times in your submission of affordable houses. Yes. I saw the interview of the Deputy Prime Minister on TV on Sunday when he was pressed to put a figure on that. So when you say affordable houses, do you have a figure on it in terms of cost?
No, sorry. We're talking about a range of housing typologies. There will be sort of lower density, higher quality on that coastal edge, and then there'll be opportunities for terrace type housing, which I would see as the affordable end of the spectrum. But I haven't done costings. I mean, I think it would be consistent with what you're seeing for the sort of probably the better end, if you like, of the affordable end of the spectrum. But whether it qualifies as affordable housing, I don't know. That sort of detail we haven't worked through yet. And if there is a requirement, or if that's something that the council's particularly focused on, we would obviously take that on board. We've got enough land here and enough sort of typologies, if you like, and opportunities that we can kind of address a range of needs across the market. So we'd look to do that.
Can I ask you a second question? In your project entails the ecological restoration, creation of wetlands. There is an issue of ongoing maintenance of this post-development and sale.
Yes.
Are you expecting that to be handed over to council, or are you expecting there to be protocols to enable residents who buy into it to be responsible for that?
So I've done another development up at Wairariri where we have common areas, and in that case there's an incorporated society that's been set up to manage the common areas. That's one model. Another alternative would be for those sites that are sort of situated around the open space to extend across so that they have separate ownership of those and obligations that come with that. And a third option would be some sort of, perhaps some sort of co-governance and ownership structure with iwi if they're interested in that type of arrangement, or if council is interested in some or all of this as open space sort of recreation, park type opportunities, then we'd be open to that as well. So there's a range. We haven't worked through the detail of that yet, but there's a range of different opportunities here. There might be some parts that are sort of suited for informal open sort of playing grounds, sports grounds. There'll be some playground areas. How they're managed and owned, I think there's some detail to work through with the council.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you very much, Andrew. This is exciting, and it's great that you're putting your time and energy into Kāpiti. It would be really helpful for us to continue this conversation if you could send a prospectus of some of your other developments. So it's just always something that is quite welcome.
Sure.
Yep. And secondly, I was wondering what your commitment would be to clean energy, energy efficiency, clean energy production, waste reduction, and those sorts of things going forward with your development and the way people live there and interact with the land.
Yeah, so we're obviously really wanting to achieve if you like, an ecological themed development. People who are aware of and appreciate the natural environment. I've got a colleague who I've introduced to Wayne, who's very focused on a new solar initiative, but that will sit outside of this development. I think we're looking to integrate with the active mode corridor, which is very important. We think that this site could afford some critical mass for public transport options north of Waikanai. If there isn't development up there, then you won't attract the services that you need to get people out of their cars. Waste minimisation is very important. I think it's fair to say our thinking in that regard isn't particularly developed at this stage beyond, a commitment to best practice in terms of ecological outcomes. We're really serious about that, and Jeremy Moon in particular is very focused on making sure that this is a sustainable ecological product, which is very consistent with his sort of ethos, and that vision is shared by all of us.
Yeah, that's wonderful, thank you. And I guess what I'm saying is, looking forward, when people live in your development, wouldn't it be great to just go and turn the lights off and knowing it on and know it has nothing to do with the national grid? I mean, in New Zealand, all of this is entirely impossible, but it needs forethought and to be built integrated into the design. Yeah, so good conversation.
Yeah, I think that energy efficiency and distributed generation are both really important, and I suppose we can take that ethos on board as part of the thinking around how we develop and package this, for sure.
Yes, please. Thanks.
Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, Andrew, for coming along and speaking today. And I have to admit, it sounds, even some of the diagrams look quite similar to what had been proposed many, many years ago in terms of the Narara development, Jonathan Smith. But I suppose my questions are probably around the infrastructure, and there's probably a question on here for staff as well. So I see that you have a site that is potentially going to have about between 450 and 500 homes there, but there's only one road access, and I suppose in terms of being integrated into the community better, are there options for other road connections, or really that is what the lie of the land is basically saying?
No, absolutely. There are opportunities for further connections. The traffic engineers view is that there's sufficient capacity with that northern connection, but the urban designers say it's really important that we have that connectivity. So we're going to enable connections that will also potentially, if people are interested in, in adjoining properties or surrounding areas are interested in unlocking their land, that will enable that connection through. So there'll be connections. I think 2 are proposed to the south. One is proposed to the north, but in between the main access to the property and the expressway, sort of in behind the garden centre sort of area. So no, we're fully aware of the need for this to integrate with what happens around it, and also of the potential for this site to unlock what happens or what could happen around the site.
Okay, but what you're saying though is that at this point in time it's dependent on some of those neighbouring properties to be released to provide those road connections to other established roads to the south in particular.
Yeah, well, I think to justify them, there needs to be more development to the south in particular. But there is a paper road that runs across the site that's intended for the infrastructure corridor that means that those connections are very straightforward, and we're designing to those connections. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I have another question. So today we've had a number of people come along and speak about projects that they're interested in pursuing, and I suppose I'm interested to know whether or not the general feedback that you, for example, you may want to answer this, is whether they are connected, for example, to the water reticulation. You do mention it, but the water reticulation and then the waste management side of it, because I know that there are some I suppose developments that have occurred that are actually off the council system, and there are problems. So I'm just wondering whether or not it is proposed that both will be connected up to the council infrastructure.
Yes, it is, and we've had meetings with the infrastructure manager, and it looks as though there's sufficient capacity in the wider network. We will need to pay for the connection to the network, and we'll need to make sure there's some water pressure issues. This is the potable water supply. There's some water pressure issues because of the way that the water system's been daisy chained that we will need to overcome, most likely with on-site tanks, until that reticulation is kind of put in place for the wider North Waikanae area, so that there may well end up being a reservoir up on the hill near Hadfield Road or something like that. When that happens, then things can change. But we will need to make sure that what we do is sufficiently robust to connect for the short term and the long term, and there may be a future solution that we can transition to. If not, it'll be a standalone. When I say standalone, what I mean is it'll be engineered to work as a standalone development that connects to council's reticulated supplies. But it's important to us that it is connected to council supplies, because I think that's a much more robust solution in the long term.
Yeah. So in relation to the wastewater part of it is okay. So the developer is potentially going to have to pay for this. So there's no cost to ratepayers.
Correct.
Okay.
So we would expect to pay our way for those services. We're not looking for council to provide a handout. We're aware that at some point the council's got some big work to do around upgrading some of those facilities, wastewater in particular, so we've got a sort of infrastructure working group set up with Sean Mellon and people out of his team to just tease through that. But at this stage, the signals are that there's no significant constraint that can't be overcome with site-specific engineering work.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Coates.
Kia ora, Andrew. Look, I'll keep it brief. You've been quite a few questions already. I'm going to assume that you may have known about the previous proposal for a Pika Pika interchange, and part of the rationale that was given for not progressing that was the lack of development and infrastructure in the area. I'm interested in your views as part of a team that are looking at a significant development of around 430 to 450 lots there. What an interchange there would mean in terms of connectivity, and whether you think that would be justified, and I guess your development help strengthen that argument for the need of further transport connections there.
Yeah, well, I think, like with the public transport thing, I think the more development that happens there, the stronger the argument is. I think it would be great. I think if there was an upgraded Pika Pika interchange, that would be a really good thing. And if we can lend some critical mass to support the business case for that, then that's great. And our proposal won't impact on that, and it would benefit from it, as I think the whole wider area would. And same thing goes for a Waikanae North Railway Station, I think.
Thank you. Look, and I appreciate the response. I maybe just suggest if you flick an email through at some stage to either myself or Councillor Pravanov to link you with the team that are trying to progress that proposal, and might be beneficial to both parties to talk.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Pravanov, you got another question?
Yes, I do. Just following on Councillor Cootes' question. So in relation to, I suppose, greater connectivity in terms of the roading network, I think I heard you say that you've been advised that the current roads are adequate to meet a development of this size. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So we've prepared a transport assessment that's attached to our submission on the growth strategy that confirms that there's sufficient capacity. We've had discussions with council's transport people, and there's going to be some sort of ongoing liaison about exactly how that T intersection might work.
Which
the one between the site and coming off Pika Pika Road.
And Paitawa.
Yeah. Pika Pika Road. So that's it tees off Pika Pika Road. There's an existing entranceway there.
Yes. And
that road has got sufficient capacity, sight lines and everything to take the number of vehicle movements that we're talking about. There may need to be an extra turning lane, or there may need to be a roundabout. We'll work through that detail with the council's transport experts. But there is a paper road that connects to the south. The experts not telling us that that's required for this development, but it's an opportunity for development to the south to connect through, but also to connect further south, and we're open to exploring that with the council. But it's not a connection that is required to enable safe access to this site.
So just a further question then. So you say between 450 and 500 houses. How many vehicle movements, extra movements, would that potentially involve?
I think it's in the order of 2,600 a day or something like that.
Thank you.
Just off the top of my head, I could be wrong. I haven't got the report in front of me.
Right. Doesn't seem to be any more questions. Thank you for taking the time and talking to us.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Bye.
30 is Bryce Holmes here? Oh, he's on Zoom. Oh,
Stephen, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear us okay?
Yep, we can hear you, Bryce. Stick to the main points, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Perfect. Look, firstly, thank you for your time to talk about our site, North Waikanai, 99 to 103 Start Highway 1. Firstly, look, and thank you for including the property as part of the medium priority growth strategy for the plan. I guess part of today is what we want to discuss quickly is the inclusion for a high priority rather than just the medium priority. With the site, we've done a number of planning and scheme plans on the site already. I just wonder if I can share my screen. Oh, no, actually can't share my screen. It's disabled. Can someone let me share screen, or is that too hard?
Just hang on a moment.
Okay.
It's 114. Yeah. It says here 114. No. So it's 118, is it?
Okay, Stephen, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, great. Fantastic. So just quickly as well, just to introduce on the call with me, I've got Stephanie Blick from Scope Planning, and I'm from Thames Pacific. We are developing the Florian Kāpiti development with 64 townhouses just off Ihakra Street near the town centre there. We're in discussions with KCDC on another site at 240 Kāpiti Road near the airport for about 150 townhouses on that site. And this is another site that we've got adjoining the Manu Park development in Waikato North. So look, we've got probably a lot of vested interest in developing in the Kāpiti region for many years ahead, and obviously the Florian is our first development there, and we're looking to do many more and work in with KCDC at the same time. So if everyone can see our screen here, so can you see my cursor on the screen?
Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. So this is our site's outlined in the blue. However, it does also includes this little chunk at the front. So this is the old state highway running down here. This is the Ryman's retirement village, and next to us here is Manu Park development, which is obviously being developed by Pritchard's at the moment. And looks, if you took an aerial photo of this, they will look probably completely different to what it looks now on the site. So as you can see, I guess we're right adjoining the existing, I guess, town centre and infrastructure and density, and hence why we're looking to have it included in the high priority, as it is a logical kind of first extension of any of the growth strategy areas there. I'll just see if I can. I'm just going to share a separate screen with you guys. Share that. So we have got a scheme layout done for the site. We've got 180 sections, along with I'll just start from the top here. So where my mouse is on this side, that's out towards the Waikanai Beach. To the south here is, if it loads up, is the Manu Park development. There is already a link through to our site from the Manu Park development, which has been vested to KCDC. So council has already allowed for access coming off the adjoining site, as well as the access that we do have onto the old state highway. We've got effectively 5 hectares of ecological land in the middle of our site, which we're up for discussion whether that's vested back or kept within the community in the development. And we have got a portion of the development which is earmarked for medium density housing. Obviously, so we've got some more affordable housing mixed in with the standalone house and land on the in the development there as well. And scrolling down there, you can just see we've kind of hit the edge of the site and down to where its motorway is. Obviously, a number of areas identified for flood storage and stormwater detention there as well. From an infrastructure point of view, again, we're kind of all there ready to go. The infrastructure is there on site. As far as the wastewater, stormwater, and all the three waters there, as well as basic kind of power, electricity to go there as well. So, look, from that side, we have had some engagement with Te Atiawa, and we are firstly looking at the government fast track process on the site as well, and so we are exploring our options with that as we speak on the site. Steph, you got anything to add?
The only thing I would add is in terms of potential planning constraints, the site is currently in the eco-hamlet structure plan area, which has sand dunes identified as a notable feature. So as part of the concept, we've undertaken to retain those features on the site, and we'll be looking at ways at trying to integrate them with the development. Again, whether these are public spaces or communal or private, still yet to be confirmed. In terms of any regional council constraints, there is a stream, a tributary of Waimea stream bisecting the top of the site. There's only just a culvert connection proposed over that, so there'll be no other reclamation of that stream proposed. And as Stephen said, there is an eco-site within the site that will be retained as well. In relation to the growth strategy document, there's a lot of discussion around creating walkable neighbourhoods. So this site is within, I think it's a kilometre of the town centre and 1.2 kilometres of the train station. So there's a lot of commentary in the national policy statement about walkable catchments being 400 metres and 800 metres. This is, admittedly a little bit beyond that, but it's a very long straight road. So very easy access to existing services and amenity. So in terms of planning constraints, the only real constraint to development at the moment is its current zoning. So if that can be resolved through a plan change that will come about from this growth strategy, then Stephen can kind of get underway with it. For all intents and purposes, it is shovel ready, so ready to go.
Cool. I think we're moving into questions, and the first one's probably really easy. Are you able to supply us with the presentation that's on screen? I don't seem to have a copy, unless I've lost it.
Sure. Look, we hadn't actually sent it through, so we can easily send that through for you.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, for your presentation today. And I know this in some respects might be considered to be detailed, but I think it's something that has been quite topical. So you have a nice plan up there, and I see that there are a number of roads. And so with these plans, the roads, do they actually allow for parking on either sides of the roads or not? And what the width of the road is?
Yeah, so it allows for parking on either side, but they are parallel parks rather than the 90-degree parks.
And so if two cars were parking on both sides of the road, does that allow two cars to travel past each other, or only one?
Yeah, definitely two cars plus parking on either side.
Okay, thank you very much.
Who designed this scheme? They designed all the roads to council standards, so you'll see a width there that would comply with the standards. The detail in terms of parking and street trees, etc., and vehicle crossings that would come later. But that width that you see there allows for parking on either side.
Thank you.
Councillor Coates.
Your Worship, I just want to check. My understanding is that questions can be asked of staff as well at this time. Is that?
I'm sort of reluctant to allow that at the moment.
I thought that was what was said at the start, hence me checking.
I think if you note the question down and then you can check with them after we've done this submission.
Right, then I have no question.
Anybody else?
No.
Councillor Nakan.
Just, it's Councillor McCann again. With the medium density, can you explain what you envisage that to look like?
I'm not sure if you're familiar with, again, probably familiar with the Florian Kāpiti development that we did. Or it's basically looking to start construction shortly. So it'll be a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom townhouses, basically in blocks of 5 to 7 units in each block, and really it'll be pitched more at an affordable price point. We're making the most of the surrounding land and the ecological areas as far as enjoyment of outdoor spaces, but every unit does have a decent private outdoor area, along with car parking, and as mentioned before, either 2 or 3 bedroom options there. Typically,
just to follow up Councillor Pravanov's question there. You mentioned car parking because with the medium density, obviously you've identified that you're quite a little bit of a distance away from town. So will the car parking be sufficient in that area with the medium density to be able to get back into Waikanae?
Yeah, no, very much so. Look, and that's important. When we do medium density, it kind of depends where the development is as to, I guess, how many car parks that you need. I mean, if you're doing development, right next to the train station at Paraparaumu, you might not require 1 car park per unit. If you're doing developments that are a bit more further stretched out, even though they are medium density and some of the MPS rules, kind of don't allow for car park if you don't want to, from a practical sense of a user practicality and also the buyer requirements, they will want a minimum, a car park or 2 car parks per unit plus some visitor car parking.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Can I test this? If you had an opportunity to use the current RMA amendment for medium density housing without having to have resource consent, would you have used that tool in this current plan if you had the means or the ability?
Steph?
So you're talking about the bill that's currently before. So as I understand it, that bill only relates to current residentially zoned land. And a requirement for council to essentially upzone residential zone land to medium density.
You're cutting out.
If there's the opportunity to utilise that, then absolutely. From a planning point of view, I believe it's an ideal location for medium density. When I talked about the NPS provisions, talking about walkable catchments, that 800 metres that they reference relates to enabling high density, 6 stories. So we're only just outside of that. So we're not proposing high density on this site, but certainly I think it's an ideal location for medium density.
Okay.
Ultimately, though, it does come down to, I guess, the landowner and his view of what the market also wants in that area. And I guess Stephen thinks a mix of medium density and standalone is appropriate.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Worship. Hi team, it's Councillor James Cootes here. Stephen and Steph, thanks for walking us through this today. You made a comment just earlier around, obviously walk through the proposal, but that it would require a plan change and that you're hoping that through this process around the Growing Well document will enable that. So could you, I did have a question for staff, but obviously can't answer that at the moment. Is that your understanding of this process, that bringing forward projects like this through this Growing Well consultation process what's your understanding of how that will enable that?
Yes, so it's my understanding that as part of the implementation plan, that plan changes would be advanced to rezone the greenfield sites that aren't already currently plan enabled. That's certainly my experience with other growth strategies I've been involved in. the Porirua City Council growth one most recently, where they identified growth areas and as part of the implementation plan set out a process in which that they would become plan enabled, which would be through plan changes.
Thank you. And in your experience, what time frame would that then occur in if it was to progress through that process?
My experience was that it was a bit unique in that the council decided to advance one site that I was working on, Plymouth Farm, you might be aware of, through a streamlined plan change process. And then that was followed by their proposed district plan. So instead of a plan change, they were actually working on their district plan review. So it wasn't through a plan change. I understand that through this housing bill, there will be some pretty stringent requirements for council to implement the bill through an expedited, streamlined plan change process. And it may be that there's opportunities to rezone greenfield sites as part of that process. But as I say, the devil's in the detail with that bill, and I think they're kind of drafting it on the fly at the moment. So be interested to see what happens with that in a couple of weeks.
Could I just tease out a little bit though? I'm not knowledgeable in this area, but are you expecting that would take a year, 2, 3? Because obviously this development is sitting there ready to go.
So, for the streamlined plan change process for Plymouth Farm, it was supposed to be streamlined, but that took 18 months from first identifying, I guess, the need, identifying the site as being appropriate, having discussions with MFE and stepping through that SPP process.
Thanks, team. I'm really asking the questions just about understanding expectations, so I appreciate the responses.
Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you again. I just want to follow up on Councillor McCann's question in relation to medium density. So you mentioned that these homes would be 2 to 3 bedrooms. I'm just interested to know what else medium density means in terms of the size of the sections and what percentage cover you're looking at for these sections. I suppose the size of the house. Just trying to figure out how dense it would be.
Look, it's probably, I guess if you're trying to relate it back to the government bill when they say it's a 50% site coverage rule, if we took a whole site that would typically do medium density on, our site coverage sits at about probably about 35% site coverage. So what's proposed by in the government bill is a lot more dense than we'd ever do. If someone was going to do it, you kind of really jamming them on as the sunlight's not great to kind of go there. Each of the townhouses would have an outdoor area, approximately kind of as wide as the townhouse, so it might be kind of 5 metres wide by 6 metres deep type thing. So it might have its own 30 square metre private outdoor area, but then obviously they'll have the access to the all the surrounding bushland and ecological area and little parks and stuff as well there. So we try and make it more of a community, i.e. everyone's not kicking a ball around in the backyard, they're going to a community area to do that, and your kid might be playing football with the kid from next door rather than just playing with their brother and sister.
Just to add to that, the benefit of advancing through developments through a medium density model is that everything's designed as a whole. It's all integrated. So at the same time as you're designing your houses, you're designing the outdoor spaces around them, the relationship between those spaces and their neighbours, integration with communal outdoor spaces and communal parking areas. So at once you're able to design it and ensure that there is sufficient, internal residential amenity for future residents. For a vacant lot subdivision, obviously you're designing the lots, and then the future development has to ensure compliance with the standard residential controls.
So thank you. You mentioned that the whole site coverage was 30%. So I'm just wondering, so that includes all those open areas. So when it
No,
comes...
so that's just in the medium density area.
Right,
So
okay.
we just highlighted this area. So look, and this would be the same if we've if we're doing a development, a medium density development at Paraparaumu Beach or Notaki, they'll sit around about 35% site coverage, no matter kind of where we did it. Once we factor in, I guess all the kind of setbacks, parks, common areas, and amenity and stuff for people. If you're jamming it in, at the 50%, it's literally doing 3 townhouses out the back of your section and squeezing them on as tight as possible. But there's not much amenity left when you're doing it that tight.
So I'm not actually...
Right, I just need to hurry you up. I just need to hurry you up.
Okay.
So the 30% or 50% excludes the open areas in the...
Yeah, so that's 35% per individual residential occupant. So the development site coverage would be, for this development, would be significantly less because the eco site and the other features are being retained and they'll be integrated.
Right. Thank you very much for taking the time speaking to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you all for your time. Bye-bye.
The next 115, Michael Keown and Clint Smith for Kāpiti Urban. That's what I've got here. Right, okay, got you. Bryce Holmes, 118. Bryce.
So thank you, Mayor and councillors. I'm here, my name's Bryce Holmes. I am a Director and Planning Resource Management Consultant for Land Matters Limited, based up in Otaki. I'm here representing Murray and Jennifer Searle. They own a property off Te Moana Road, not far from the expressway interchange. Murray would have liked to have attended in person today, but he puts his apologies in. He's actually ill, so he's stayed at home today. I haven't prepared anything, and my intention is really just to make representation on behalf of Murray and Jenny, and also answer any questions you might have about the land. It's about a minute's drive from the expressway interchange, and as I said, it's off Te Moana Road. It's a vacant site. I've only got a small plan here, but I can point out the parcel of land if that's helpful for people. So the address is, I've put it in our written submission. It doesn't actually have a street address at the moment because it's vacant land, but it's between 54 and 56 Te Moana Road. It's just under 3 hectares. So I've just got a plan here that I'm holding up, and I can point out the boundaries of the land. It's accessed from a road reserve off Te Moana Road. This is Wiggery Drive, and over here's the expressway I've shown here. The vacant land is this parcel here. There's a piece of council land at the back that has a cell phone tower on it. So it's right in the middle of Waikanai. Murray and Jenny are in the process of going through a resource consent process for placing a dwelling at the top. It's got nice views of Kāpiti Island and out to the beach. Murray and Jenny have been in the district for 60 years, and they're keen to build a nice home for themselves to retire in. But really, looking at the property and the growth strategy, it's right in the middle of a residential area, and they thought it might be helpful for council to consider some sort of greenfield or lifestyle development for the piece of land. It does have some cultural value attached to it through Te Atiawa. There was a wahitapu area put over the land as part of the Western Link Road process and the process leading into that. It also has some ecological value at the back it's called Osborne Swamp, but there's probably a more appropriate name for that area of land that's covered in manuka and kanuka cover at the moment. The rest of the property is covered in macrocarpa and other weedy species. So Murray's been out there with a brush cutter for the past 18 months in readiness for building his house and improving the land. He's established a good working relationship with Te Atiawa. There's an archaeological report available for the land as well, and he's undertaken a vegetation survey to make sure that there's nothing out there that's going to cause problems from an ecological perspective. Our submission wasn't as forthcoming as the people that came before us, which was the Stephen Sartorius. He had a full scheme plan. Murray and Jenny are really looking to build their house and then work with the council on an appropriate plan, and it would be in either a greenfield or a lifestyle style of development rather than any medium density or high density development. So it's a piece of land that is available for some form of change of land use, and really what we would like to do with the council and particularly your officials is work together on a plan in advance of any plan changes that may give effect to the growing well strategy. So we haven't come here with a forceful plan to, ask the council to approve anything. It's more an offer to work with the council with the land so that it is available for the growing well strategy. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and also I'm sure Murray and Jenny would say an open invitation for councillors to visit the property if they so choose.
Right. Questions? Councillor McCann.
Sure, might be the same question as last time, and maybe staff can just check. Do we have what you've been talking about? I've been unable to just find. Am I dense?
No, I think we have I'm just looking in the number, and I think we've misnumbered the submission process, so we will come back and identify the submission with you and just equivalent it back to the discussion so we can see where it is. So apologies for that error.
Thanks, Councillor. The submission has got a front cover that looks like that, so it'll be quite noticeable in the documentation. There's no plans attached to that submission, by the way. It's just an explanation.
Look, while that's been sorted out, are there any other questions?
Sorry, yeah.
Any questions while that's been sorted out? No?
No, yes. Yeah,
No, yes.
I am querying the wahitapu.
Sure.
So what does that mean? What does that mean for you as the consultant
Yeah.
here on this?
Yes, so what it means for us as the consultant, it means that there is a layer of significance over the land from a cultural perspective, and what that means for me, I won't force my own value set on the council in terms of what it means to me, but what it means for us is it's a clear signal that the current landowner, or the landowner for the time being, should be rightly consulting with Te Atiawa on what the cultural value is attached to that land. And as I say, Murray and Jenny are part of the way through a process of putting what is a farm track up to the top of the hill so that they can build their house. And as part of that process, they have consulted with Te Atiawa, which meant a walkover with iwi. It meant obtaining an archaeological report to see whether there was any physical thing on the land that might be discovered that needed to be protected or avoided. There hasn't been that suggestion from the archaeologist. Te Atiawa have said that in undertaking the earthworks there should be someone on site to monitor the works, which is absolutely fine and very reasonable. And also it was an opportunity for Te Atiawa to explain and share their knowledge with the landowner for the time being. So really it's a signal to the landowner to get together, have a relationship with iwi. And what I've explained to Murray and Jenny is that relationship is more than just a resource consent or an RMA process. The conversation shouldn't be so defined that we just say there's a process, we have to talk and we should talk. It actually goes beyond that. So Murray and Jenny, when they've been tidying the site up, scrub cutting and bush cutting, they've been very respectful of the land and trying to make sure that they respect that land. What they've got proposed in terms of a dwelling, as I say, they want to retire there, so they're not looking to just build a house and run away. And that relationship, and what I've said in the submission is that if the council is interested in preparing a plan with Murray and Jenny for the property, that should be done with iwi as well in partnership. So there's with the ecological values at the site, there's opportunities for improvement through planting and also other value sets at the back, maybe public access if it was appropriate. So those discussions are ongoing, and again, it's not for me to prejudge those values, but yeah, just give you an explanation as to what that waihe tapu means.
Councillor Mekan.
No problem.
Well, thank you. We certainly haven't found it. That's correct.
Apologies. The attachment, which is the main submission, we've attached a cover sheet, but we don't have the attachment in there, so we will print it for you after this and provide it at lunchtime.
And probably the most important thing is that you get a map and you're spatially aware of where it is. Yeah.
So what I was going to say is that we might have to come back with some questions once we've read that. Apologies for that.
That's absolutely fine. And I don't mind if the questions come through some of your officials as well. I mean, it's an open dialogue.
It would help if you put a ring and a pin.
Yeah, sure.
And if we could pass up, we'll just pass it across and around the table, it doesn't time for us to do that.
No problem.
Where the on and off ramp is for the expressway, it's the first property on your left hand side heading towards the beach. So it used to be the Osborne's property and it runs right up the hill.
There's a cell tower on there.
Right is the Fairway Oaks subdivision. Yeah. So they're looking at building their house right on the top. But was there already a house on that site that was moved off once the expressway went through?
No, I think I couldn't be certain. I think I know the house that you're referring to. That one was shifted to Langdale Drive, I think, and that was on the flat. It was down the flat. Yep. This property's behind a row of houses, and you actually can't see it that well from the road. So the most prominent thing in the area is the cell tower.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's in and around there.
Okay.
Right. There are no other questions. We will pass this round. Thank you very much for taking the time talking to us.
No problem. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Right. So next one is 115. Am I right? Kāpiti Urban. Michael.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael McKeon, representing the Kāpiti Air Urban Committee. Kāpiti Air Urban is the vision that's evolved from the beginnings of Save Kāpiti Airport. We've presented our vision for Kāpiti Coast Airport Precinct to councillors and other forums. That was for a mixed development surrounding an operating airport, with develop, enabled and enhanced by the retention of our airport. Therefore, I won't cover that ground again. I'm here to speak in support of our submission to the proposed Growing Well strategy. The first point, we want to commend Kāpiti Coast District Council for the lead you're taking with the strategy. People want to live on the Kāpiti Coast, and this is a council proposing to get ahead of this by providing the infrastructure and guiding the growth to ensure the growth doesn't undo the unique qualities that draw people here. With this plan, Kāpiti Coast could be one of the leaders in the area of planning for growth that enhances community and urban environment. So, yeah, we're very, very supportive. Next, we're particularly encouraged by the proposed potential development around an operating airport on your overview map. The vision we've presented to you previously is one idea for how that could work, creating jobs, maintaining open spaces, providing urban housing, maintaining and building sustainable connections between Kāpiti and other regions. We also support the approach of encouraging intensification around existing retail and rapid transport hubs, combined with the greenfield development centred on new rapid transit stops. The point we'd like to make is this strategy provides significant quality growth potential for Kāpiti. There's space for houses, work, retail, transport, and for an operating regional airport on our coast. Thirdly, growing well requires sustainable transport infrastructure. Now, this isn't just zero greenhouse gas rail and road transport. There's also space for a need for sustainable air transport as part of a mix. We envisage Kāpiti Coast Airport as the airport of the future, sized and placed locally to work well as part of a network of regional airports linked by electric aviation. And having sustainable direct regional air links will be something that differentiates Kāpiti and helps us grow well. And a key point is, in the end, with infrastructure, it's vital to maintain your options. Who knows what transport will evolve to in 2050, or what other technology the community may need to adapt this land to. But we won't have these options if the core airport land's built over right now to provide housing. That's housing that could actually go in your other proposed growth areas. Fourth point, growing well requires local jobs and preferably higher value jobs, a mix of higher value jobs than we've got now. If the airport runway is closed and covered with low density housing, it'll help to lock in a future for Paraparaumu and Kāpiti Coast as a set of dormitory towns with few jobs in the local area and long journeys into Wellington or perhaps even Palmerston North. Under the plan we've presented, the airport's kept open, surplus lands developed for commercial and residential use. It'll create a jobs hub both for airport businesses and for those who set up shop nearby. So in summary, we support the Growing Well strategy and the retention of a mixed-use Kāpiti Airport precinct as part of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Hanford.
Kia ora. So you mentioned in the submission under Mana Whenua and Council having a mutually mana enhancing partnership as being something that Kāpiti Urban fully supports. I'm just keen maybe to get a brief update on how Kāpiti Urban might also be embracing that as kind of a principle for taking forward your vision, because if it's something that you support us in doing through our visions for growth, I'm just keen to hear how that translates in your vision too.
Personally, I haven't been directly involved in meetings with the Hapu Trust, but other members of the committee, the Mayor and the Chief Executive had a very productive meeting with a few weeks ago, and look, I wouldn't want to be making statements on their behalf, but yeah, fundamentally we're committed to helping local government, central government and Mana Whenua work together to exercise this vision. Yeah. And look, it's an ownership agnostic vision. It's simply a vision for use of the airport land. Yeah.
Councillor Compton.
Thank you for your presentation today and for your detailed submission. I'm interested in your submission. You talk about if we lose the airport, you believe that Paraparaumu, Waikanae and Raumati are going to become dormitory towns of Wellington with long commutes in there. Have you looked at, say, examples like the Wairarapa where there is Hood Aerodrome but it doesn't have commuter aviation services, or say the North Shore and Albany and that, where actually most of Auckland's economic growth is happening at the moment and they don't have an airport? They've got to drive a similar distance to get to Auckland Airport. What would you say about examples like that, which sort of illustrate that actually the airport's not the be-all or the end-all of economic growth in a region?
No particular single element that's is the sole answer to economic growth. But Masterton District Council, I know, is working very hard to try and get scheduled services back to Masterton. They're investing quite a bit in their airport with the the Provincial Growth Fund with that in mind, and I know North Auckland, same thing. There's a lot of work on trying to get scheduled aviation into that area, and that includes by the current manager of Kāpiti Airport, who owns and operates an airport in North Auckland. So yeah, I agree. It's not no single economic element is the be-all and end-all, but every bit helps. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. No other questions, so thank you very much for
thank
talking
you.
to us. Lunch break. Is that a good idea? No way. Right. Can we say we come back at 1:40? 1:40. Can you tell?